Yikes.
Yeah, my wife was just asking if she asked me earlier to ask you about it. Have you had any like super deep deja vu moments?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm having them pretty, I would say at least once a week now. I'll be in a conversation or talking to someone and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm having deja vu. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's
happening very frequently.
it's been accelerating for sure. Yeah, we were in a bar. When was that we went there?
It was around the holidays.
Which holiday? There's been a lot.
Christmas.
Oh, Christmas time. It was around Christmas time. Her sister had invited us out to go see a rock band,
Okay.
and it's not really a band. It was a bar, but it was a couple of the local guys that replay a bunch of music, and they're really popular in the area. So they're usually hard to come by. Well, apparently the owner of the bar knows the band, and it was his birthday at the same time. So we got there. We met up with her sister and some other people, and as we're sitting there and we're looking around, we weren't talking to each other yet, but I was like, wow, that band looks really familiar. So we've probably seen them before. And then all of a sudden they had one of their band members that's now playing with them is a former bass guitarist from the Bullet Boys. And I had no idea. We now know the backstory of the Bullet Boys, but before that we didn't.
Right.
Bullet Boys sang all up in me.
All up in you.
Or all up in you. Which I'm pretty sure was never done by the Bullet Boys in the old Sagittarius arm because they never even existed back then.
Right.
But now they are the main band and they've got hundreds of videos out there and all sorts of crazy stuff. But anyways, it was just kind of, it was weird. They're like, oh yeah, now the newest member of our band, they've been retired for a while, and you know him from the Bullet Boys. And the guy comes up and he's a bass guitarist. And I'm like, that's really kind of weird. And then everyone around us, there was like really, really unique characters. People dressed really funky and weird and all these different conversations. So at the end of the night, my wife and I were talking about it, and I'm like, are you like kind of tripping out right now? And she's like, yes. And we're talking about things that were going on that we both picked up on and noticed. It was like, what the hell? I mean, we assumed that we had seen the band at another bar because we had not been to that particular bar to see that band ever. And it's like, but we have been. So what's going on? And that could lend to do with, again, with the conscious shifting stream is perhaps whatever reality we were in at the moment, we had been into that situation before and had been around that band before.
What I find weird is we've had multiple deja vus together. What I find crazy is that we're having deja vu together. It's not like it's I mean, I have my own personal deja vus, but I mean, it's weird when we have deja vu and we're at the same location at the same time, having the same conversation with friends. I'm sorry. We're having the same conversation with friends, and it's strange to me because we're both experiencing the deja vu together.
Right.
Not I've never had deja vu that someone else has experienced the same deja vu at the same time.
You know what? You know what's interesting? My friend Sean, who's the psychic, when I talk about deja vu, he's like, "Oh, you're just remembering the dress rehearsal." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm remembering the dress rehearsal? In your dream time?" He's like, "In your dream, people get deja vu because you've already experienced these things in dream time, and when people have deja vu together, it's because when you sleep with someone under the same roof more than 3 or 4 days, you start to dream together. So." If you were to talk to him, he'd say your deja vu is because you both dreamt this of this future event and what he calls the dress rehearsal, and your memory is remembering part of this, what he calls the dress rehearsal for an event.
When we first met, we didn't actually physically meet. We met actually in our dreams. So
Wow.
when we finally first met face to face, it was like we already knew each other because we met each other before.
It was like 6 months. It was like 6 months before we actually physically met. I was with my ex-wife at the time. Yep. She was with her ex-husband at the time.
Yes.
And I had this like totally awakening dream that was like so super real. And my ex-wife was a brunette, totally different build than Ruth Ann.
I knew it was him when I.
Oh, by the way, Chris, this is my wife Ruth Ann.
Hi, Ruth Ann. Nice to meet you.
She's like, I don't want to be in the video. And then she's sitting here from the side chirping in. I'm like, you might as well get in now. Yeah, it was like 6 months prior. I met this blonde who had the exact same build as Ruth Ann does. And I'm like, and it was like I felt guilty about it because it was like we were like so intimate together and it was like very surreal. I mean, like felt very physical. And then I woke up and I was just sitting there with my ex-wife at the time. And I was like, oh, so disappointed about that. I was like, I want to go back to sleep and stay in that world. And it's like crazy. And then all of a sudden, like I said, about 6 months later, I had split from my ex. I was still living in my house, but I was already done.
Yep. And
we were on the way out.
I already separated from mine.
She separated from hers, and not because of that dream.
No.
I mean, we were kind of both on the way out before that, but then her and I met, and she was disappointed that I was still married, and I was disappointed that she was still married. But we were separated, so we're like, we're just going to try to make it work.
It was weird that I talked about my dream to him, and he was telling me about his dream, and it was kind of strange that our dreams were exactly the same. So it was like, maybe it wasn't just me dreaming him up or him dreaming me up. We actually dreamt about each other.
So ask your housemate about that situation too, because that
I will actually, if he's around, I'll probably I might bring him up here to tell you about that. But you guys are powerful dreamers. You're powerful dreamers. That's like a superpower, actually. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I mean, I think I touched on it on some of my videos, but I mean, I could tell you stories. I mean, going back to being a child, can remember having very, very strong inept dreams about things. Yeah. And some of them were just, the batshit crazy ones, which I don't even have hardly anymore. I mean, I used to do like, I dreamt I was a werewolf or a vampire, or I had superpowers, I could fly, or different crazy things like that. And I don't even dream like that anymore. Yeah, ever since becoming really aware of the Mandela Effect.
Child's imagination.
Yeah. But I don't know. I've always been on the fringe of friends. I always had a lot of people I'm associated with, but not a lot of people I consider like super really close, reliable friends. So I really don't have any, what I would even say now, best friends. We have a lot of people we socialize with, a lot of people we're very, very close to, but I don't consider them friends only because we're not in tune with each other, if that makes any sense. Like we have a lot of common interests. Like we ride a motorcycle. So a big group of people we hang out with all ride motorcycles, and we all like to hang out together. But none of them are Mandela affected or Mandela aware.
Or they don't talk about it.
But I brought things up in conversations, and a lot of them shun away from it, and they don't want to have the conversation about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I found too, when I'm talking to people, like I could mention 4 or 5 Mandela effects. And I've gotten to the point where no matter who it is, one of these 5 is going to affect them. So I've kind of like, just from me talking to so many different people, because some people will be like, no, that doesn't make sense, or no, I don't ever remember that, or JFK, no, I never saw the assassination video. And then you say something to them about the Bible, like, oh, about the blank will lie down with the lamb. What is the blank? Oh, that's definitely the lion. Of course, that's the lion will lie down with the lamb. And then you show it to them, it's the wolf, and they're like, what? So I'm finding that there's always one at least one that'll work with almost across the board with everyone. And so I'm going to go back to my friend Sean for example. I'll give you like another example. So you guys probably are aware of the Gilligan's Island Mandela Effect, about how Gilligan now has green eyes and he wears a tan hat instead of a white hat.
I knew the hat. I didn't know about the eyes, but I may not have been focused on that because of the hat.
Yeah. So, but not only that. So I went to Amazon Prime and I bought like the 1st and 2nd season of Gilligan's Island. I'm watching the 2nd season because there's more information that's been flowing about that. Everybody has green eyes now, except the millionaire. The millionaire has brown eyes. And I know Marianne had brown eyes. Okay. The movie star, her eyes are probably hazel. Skipper was kind of bluish anyway, but Mrs. Howell, bright green eyes. Marianne, bright green eyes. Gilligan, bright green eyes. So I'm talking to Sean about this. I'm like, all right, Sean, what's the reason for, like, why would there be a Mandela effect for Gilligan's Island? And he's like, he goes like, he does this thing where he like searches through his records and he's like, okay, it was Earth Mother was responsible for this, and Time Traveler Organization, and now every episode of Gilligan's Island is now encoded with tarot card wisdom. Gilligan is the fool, and he's going on and reading into all these different things, and this is why it happened. And then, J.J. Abrams' Lost series is based off of Gilligan's Island because the SS Minnow actually sunk. They all died. They're all trapped in a dream world. That's why they can never get off. They should have been rescued. Every episode, they should have been rescued, right? but you know, some Gilligan always messes it up, or something always happens, or they're always stuck in that particular dream world. Even like Return from Gilligan's Island, I think there was a movie that was made where they get off the island and they're back in civilization. Then at the end of the movie, they're back on Gilligan, stranded on Gilligan's Island again. So same thing with like Lost. They could never get off the island because they were in some kind of purgatory dream state kind of a thing. So when one of the upcoming videos, I've got like 4 more videos planned that I want to dive deep into. I want to do one just on Gilligan's Island. And I think it's going to freak people out because I'm going to have Sean will be my co-host for that particular episode. I want him to show people, like, there's 5 steps you read into for a Mandela effect. Like, who is responsible, you know, blah, blah, blah. He's got like a list of 5 things. And then the very last thing is, he calls it, what's the golden nugget at the top of the pyramid? Like, what's the big thing? What's the big message we're supposed to be getting from this particular Mandela effect? So I want to take things to another level, and I want to show people that they're not just random, but they're actually, a lot of them, I'll say the most of them, they're the popular ones. Like when my shower gets all messed up in my house, that's really not going to affect anybody except for me. But for the big ones, there's usually a reason, and like what the reason is and how you can start to look into that for yourself. So just taking it to like another level of that. And then I also want to do more with quantum physics and how that's all related to how this is all working in our holographic universe, and et cetera.
Yeah. Another big one for me was the Statue of Liberty. And, you know, now New York having been attacked by Germany, and then a chunk of debris flew up there from the armament and hit the statue. So now you can't never go up into the torch, and you never get up into the torch.
I didn't hear that part of it.
You don't know you don't know about the Statue of Liberty?
I know about it. It used to be on Ellis Island. Now there's a new island that popped up, Liberty Island, and the base of the statue is different. But I don't know anything about the Germans. So number 1,
right. It's on Liberty, not on Ellis anymore. And because of where Liberty Island is located, there was a military storage bunker not far off of that location that was weapons storage. Well, back in the war, Germany had attacked the U.S. and they had spy snuck bombs into there and blew up that military bunker. And when they did, some chunks of the debris had flown up and hit the torch of the Statue of Liberty and damaged it to such a degree that no one can ever take tours up to there, and supposedly never had.
The explosion was so bad that it felt for miles. There was a lot of different explosions. It was a lot of destruction. Looking at it, it was weird because it was supposed to be our first attack on our first attack that's what started the war, I guess. But what doesn't make sense to me is I've never heard about it.
No, that's totally bizarre.
Never.
Actually, yeah, I know. I have friends that told me they've been in the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
I personally have been. I went there. I went back there in the late 80s when I was in junior high school. I was in a musical show choir group. We got invited to go to Washington for America Sings. That was like the first America Sings. Arnold Schwarzenegger was out there. But on the way out there, we had stopped in New York, and that was one of the big things. We went up to the Empire State Building. Then we took the ferry out to Ellis Island, not Liberty Island. And they had micro tours where you could go up to the torch. Now, it was a really, really, really tight staircase to get up there. So it's what they call, it's a 2-man shuffle. You got 2 people go up and 2 people come down, and they always have a leaded tour that stays behind you because it's so steep of an incline. They don't want anyone to fall.
Right.
Almost like climbing up a ladder. It's so steep. So we had been up there, and then when they got up to the top, they had the fence mesh around there so that you can't fall down underneath the little bar that goes around there. Back then too, the Statue of Liberty wasn't wrapped in gold. The torch itself, the flame itself, wasn't wrapped in gold, which it is now. But it has always been in this reality.
Holy crap. All right. See, oh my God.
So look up some stuff on that too, because now, as I say this, much like you said in your video, by the time you actually go look it up, things could be different. But I'm pretty sure that it wasn't even that long ago we were just looking into Statue of Liberty again, because I brought it up, and it's still the same way. The torch has still been damaged. No one can go up there. It's still on Liberty Island, not Ellis Island, and all those things. And that was a big thing for me when I was a kid, because I was still in school. those things are all fresh in your brain. And it was one of those once in a while experiences, because I'm from Michigan originally.
Okay.
We went there. We just took tour buses and then kind of toured across to go over towards Washington, and it stopped at several places along the way to do tourist attractions. So yeah, it was when I first heard about that, and that was, again, I stumbled upon a guy who was talking about Liberty Island, and he was going around interviewing people that worked there and saying, well, why is it on Liberty Island? At which point did they relocate the statue? And they didn't know what they were talking about, because some of the ones that even worked there thought Ellis Island or had been around there. So it was kind of weird. And I'm trying to remember that guy's name, but he's one of the ME guys that does a lot of videos like that. He'll go and interview people when he sees weird stuff go on and ask them how the history of the names occurred and different things like that.
Huh.
So
Wow.
yeah, if I could find, he should be in one of my saved. I have a bunch of people that on my A Theory of Nothing YouTube channel that I have saved in there that are MEs, people in our ME community and that. So if I could find some of them guys, I'll send them over to you. And we're all a little different. I mean, that's the thing that's unique about us. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like you said, like you don't really care what people say about you. Like, so a lot of people have been saying, how could you do this for your business? You're going to risk getting your customers and so forth. Like, I feel pretty confident in my business. Like, I feel pretty confident we've got like really good software, and our competitors kind of suck. So I don't see people jumping ship to go to a competitor that's going to be lesser. Because over and over again, I'm always told, like, how come I didn't switch to you years ago? So I can't see these same people saying, oh, okay, I'm going to switch back to this crappy software. So like I have an inner confidence about that anyway. And when I was doing this too, I was getting the feeling that I could express things in a different way, from a different viewpoint that other people haven't been able to express yet. And it was right there sitting in front of me. So I'm like, I gotta put this out. And now there's like you're inspiring me to want to even do more. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know where this is all going to lead, but I'm really glad we're making this connection here.
Oh, trust me, I am too. I mean, everyone that links to my videos, and I'm linked to a lot of their videos. When I posted at the end of the last video her and I did, we were talking about our dog. And I don't know if you've had a chance to go check out my A Theory of Nothing channel yet.
I'm sorry, not yet.
Okay. Well, if you do, we just did a video where we were talking about I talked to a guy from the IM channel, which is Jason Christopher. He does a call-in show. Usually tries to do it at 4:44 West Coast time. And he just recently moved back east to, where did he say? West Virginia or something like that. No, not that he's in that far. But anyway, so he moved. He was in California. He moved out. He's done movies with like Marky Mark back in the day and stuff like that. So the guy's pretty legit. And he does his now a call-in show, and he brings up different weird things that are going on, but then people can kind of almost talk about whatever. And I got a lot of new subscribers to my channel because of it. But one of the things I brought up to him is like, I got this crazy video we're getting ready to do about, it's a shit story. It sounds weird, but we came home last Wednesday from the vet, and my wife smelled poop in the house, like dog poop. So she's like, do you smell that? And I'm like, no. And normally you can, if a dog does that, they accidentally defecate on the ground, you can smell it. Right. And I'm like, I don't. So we looked around the whole entire house. She's like, I keep smelling it. All night long, she smelled it. We couldn't find any. Went upstairs, went to bed. I came down, went to work, and I leave for work at usually 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. Walked right through the living room, out the front door. About 3 hours later, now that our son's out of school, she sleeps in a little bit. She calls me, or she sends me a text message. She was like, why didn't you pick up the dog shit when you left? And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you had to have seen it. You'd had to have stepped over it. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So then I called her, and she's like, yeah, look, there was a spot next to our coffee table and a spot next to the bird's cage where there was dog crap on the ground. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking, well, then you should let the dogs out right away. She's like, no. I came out of the bedroom. The dogs hadn't run out in front of me. And I looked down the stairs, and because we have an open foyer to our downstairs from our bedroom area. She's like, and there was 2 piles of dried dog crap on the ground, and they've been dried, like they've been sitting there for like 8 hours or better. Yeah. And I'm like, she showed me where it was. And I'm like, oh, I would have had to have stepped in it to go past it. Yeah. Wow. And I'm like, it wasn't there. So it's kind of crazy that she had actually smelled it, almost 8 hours before she actually found it, which is kind of crazy.
That is really interesting. It's like you're vibrating between 2 different realities.
Yeah. Wow. And that's the first time I think that's even happened.
Yeah.
but it may be something new that's getting ready to start happening. So just being as you're so aware too, I wanted to bring that up to you. And like I said, we talked about it in the last video we did, because the dog we assume did it, which is our Puggle, Zeus, is 12 years old, and he does a lot of weird crap all the time. I mean, he always ends
up on the other side of the door.
Our bedroom. So we bring all 3 dogs in, and they have like pillows on the ground over here where they can sleep, and 2 of them sleep on her side, 1 sleeps on my side. And there's been several times where we're sitting here, brought all the dogs in,
or we could be asleep. We just don't hear scratching.
Yeah, a little scratching at the door. Sounds like little mice chewing, trying to chew at your wires in the wall. Okay. And I'm like, first time it ever happened, I was like, what the hell is that? I'm like, are all the dogs in the room? She's like, yeah, all the dogs are in the room. And I was like, I went over there and heard it again, went over and opened the door, and here's our Zeus. He's just sitting there on the thing, standing there like pawing at the door, like into the bedroom. And we dismissed it as, back when that first happened, which was a couple of years ago, we dismissed it as, okay, maybe we just didn't think about it. But it happens.
Yeah, now we make
frequently,
sure,
like all the
sure
time.
He's in the room with us, because he always seems to appear on the other side of the door. And
Crazy.
he's still on the other side of the door.
And
we can't figure it out.
He's our little OCD dog. So like when he goes to go to sleep, he circles around 6 times and then lays down. Right. Not 7 times, not 8 times, not 2 times. It's always 6 times. It's always in a clockwise fashion, and then he lays. And when he's been doing this teleportation thing, it's always when he's asleep, never when he's up and walking around, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
He also freezes to where it looks like he turned into a statue or a mannequin.
Pushed the remote control and froze him.
And you could talk to him, scream at him, or clap or anything, and he doesn't move. And maybe 2 minutes later or 3 minutes later, all of a sudden he's like looks at you, and then it's like nothing ever happened.
Yep.
Wow.
So
He's passed over. She saw one time he was walking along, and all of a sudden he just froze and then fell over on his side. She thought he died because he wasn't breathing.
He stopped breathing.
A few minutes later, he gets up, starts acting normal. We talked to the vet about that because it's happened twice. And she's like, oh, he had a stroke. And I'm like, okay. And a friend of ours even said the same thing. It happened to their dog, and their dog had a stroke. But when their dog got up, he started like running into the wall because he had a brain aneurysm. And I'm like, well, our dog is fine. There's nothing wrong with the guy. It's like it's like he's a robot, and someone shut down the computer program, the reboot. And when it happened, because of the way he was standing, when he got shut down, he fell over because he lost his balance, right? So it's kind of crazy weird. I mean, and I've seen things like, have you ever caught any airplanes frozen in midair or disappearing or appearing personally?
Now that you say that, I have, but I just always explained it away as something else.
Okay. Yeah. Well, don't stop explaining away as something else. I drive past the airport here in town every single day, and almost every morning, and even on the way home, I'll see planes that appear to be stopped in midair. Now, typically, if you stop, then they'll all of a sudden start taking off like a bat out of hell. But there's a lot of videos online, too, about that, about airplanes stopping in midair. There's even some where people have photographed with a P900 of prop planes coasting through the air, and their blades aren't spinning.
Interesting.
And it's not a frame rate issue with the cameras either.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So she's seen things where we're watching a plane that looked like it was stalled in midair, then it starts to fly again, and then like in the distance it goes like behind like either a building or a billboard by perspective, and It never comes to the other side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing but open sky. So as soon as you see it go behind the building, and then it should be coming out, and you're looking at nothing but open sky, but all of a sudden there's like nothing, and you go around and there's no plane. You keep searching for this plane that was up close. It's not like it was far away. It was up close. And all of a sudden it just doesn't exist anymore.
That's interesting. Because I've heard too I don't know how this plays into it, but I've heard too, like ETs and spacecraft and so forth. Sometimes they'll cloak themselves.
Sure.
Or as aircraft or something. Yeah. So they can appear in our reality, make observations, and then they could phase out.
So there's a bunch. So do you believe in chemtrails versus contrails?
I observe chemtrails for sure. I don't know what's a chemtrail.
So a chemtrail, which is what they originally were, contrail.
Like a vapor trail?
Yeah, condensation trail.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yes.
What jets used to do, and it typically happens more in the fall and the spring, is when they're in high altitude, the temperature differential and the moisture coming out of the jet engines will leave a stream of mystified moisture, fuel mixture, which is a contrail. It's condensation trails. But condensation trails will dissipate very quickly. So what we constantly see and observe is what,
Yes.
if you look up chemtrails now, all you're going to find is conspiracy theory stuff.
Right.
However, if you look up government regulated geoengineering, they will admit to chemically spraying the skies for the purpose of, right. Okay. So, but there's a lot of videos out there of people that have filmed these chemtrails being formed where there's no plane in front of there. They're either catching an orb or the plane almost looks like it's a hologram where it's floating in and out, or the chemtrail doesn't line up. Have you seen the what do you call them, the shadow trails, I'll call them?
The shadow, yeah.
Do they go the opposite? So you see a chemtrail and then the shadows go the opposite way, or are you referring to something
Not
else?
necessarily the opposite way. A lot of times they're in line, but they'll be like, it looks like something is cutting through, like as if the sky was blue, and it looks like something cut through the sky with a knife, right? So you got this black streak going through there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times they'll be lined up, but they'll be offset to where it couldn't be a cat shadow because the sun's over here opposite way. We got tons of photos of that one day we were out, and I was like,
Yeah,
you see these, and they're appearing at a different timing than the chemical trail is appearing. So it's really weird.
It's almost like the sun is really close, and it's hitting the chemtrail a certain way to where it's casting a shadow against something. You don't know. I mean, what can it be? What can it really be bouncing off of that you're seeing a black streak following the chemtrail? So it doesn't. That's where it's.
Yeah, because I know too. I think the main reason for chemtrails is fear, but besides that too, I think there's a purpose because we're getting downloads from the sun. They're coming through the sun. The sun is not what we think it is. It's like very special. And going to chemtrails is like blocking a download. You don't get the complete download. So you're like trying to download an MP3, and if your transfer stops, you're not going to get the whole file, or you're not going to be able to play it. So I think that's part of what they're doing with the chemtrails as well, under the guise of geoengineering.
Yep. Yeah. It's good. Here's the one thing that I've noticed too about, we've looked into the whole flat Earth thing. We've looked into the false moon. I know for a fact back in the old Sagittarius time, we went up one time, right? There was the Apollo 11 mission, and we had never gone back. Now we've gone 6 missions or 7 missions in total, whatever.
Right.
And stopped it. And then they lost all the telemetry data, and they did all this other things. I remember in the old Sagittarius time, we went up one time. They had done some studies. They discovered that it was mostly just stagnant rock content. So they had brought back samples, but there was no need to go back again because they barely survived the trip. And then you get fast forward where you got people like Pettit talking about, we would go there in a nanosecond, but we've destroyed the technology and it's a painful process to get back. And other scientists for NASA that say, we still have to get past the Van Allen radiation belts. And now they're even coming out and saying, there was some articles that just came out from Sky News or whatever that talks about scientists in Russia have now discovered that our Earth's atmosphere actually extends out past the moon, which is how we were able to actually get out there.
Huh. Interesting.
And there's a man buried on the moon. They sent him up in a rocket. I don't know if you knew about that.
No.
There's been 7 other countries now that have made it to the moon and have circled the moon, with China landing on the dark side of the moon. So, if you start looking into the moon stuff, and that's one of the things is what we've noticed too is, and it's kind of crazy because we looked into a lot of different things when we were first coming into the really awakened ME portion, like Illuminati and all those, all the rabbit trails that you can go down with, and I'm sure you've looked into some of all that stuff too.
Right.
But it's funny because right after we were both independently looking into the Illuminati, and I've looked into that like a long time ago, and then just kind of shelved it a little bit. But right after the Mandela Effect, trying to see what lines were connected, we saw something about the Illuminati. Then all of a sudden, I kid you not, like a day later, after her and I both were looking at some videos on it independently of each other, Taco Bell came out with their stupid Illuminati commercials that they started running. I mean, seriously, it's
Yeah.
kind of weird. We've had a lot of stuff that's happened even on TV shows that
Yeah.
we watch every now and again, and it's like all of a sudden they start talking about all these
As soon as we start looking up something, it pops up in a show or a commercial. It's just kind of like it's weird. I mean, like these apartment commercials with what's that actor's name that did The Fly?
Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, he does these apartment.
Change your reality, change the world.
Change your apartment, change your reality, change the world. And I look at these commercials that he's doing, and it's like everything that he's talking about is something that we've already started looking into. And we're like, he's talking about us living in multiple realities right now.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, because the amount of soft disclosure that's coming out, you take like Avengers Endgame. It's all about Doctor Strange, pick out of 15 million timelines. He picks the right one. Yeah. Or, whether it's Man in the High Castle, where the timeline where the Nazis won World War II, and, like everything, there's something called the OA, and timeline jumping is everywhere. So I think we're getting hit with all of this soft disclosure as well, to kind of get us ready, because I think we talk about like events, like, one of the ETs gonna like reveal themselves and all that. I think for the first kind of disclosure we need to figure out is like what reality actually is, so that when there is a bigger disclosure later on, we're already like, okay, we already understand we're living in a holographic universe, and these are the reality rules that govern us, and we understand that there have to be other beings that want to talk to us. Then we can actually start making contact or becoming more out in the open and more public. So I think this Mandela stuff, in my mind, is like a really good, softer way before like the aliens meet us, for us to start to understand what reality actually is. Right. And we're given the clues all the time. Like we've known since even in high school that the atom is 99.129999996% empty space. Mm-hmm. Like, do we really know what that means? They say that if you took every human being, all 7.2 billion people, and just removed all the empty space, you can fit everyone into the size of a sugar cube with room left over. Like sure. Every human being, we're light. We're light in frequency. That's what we are. So we've been given the clues. We just kind of, our minds go by it.
Yeah. So, and now we have the technology. A lot of scientists have the technology now with microscopes, to where they can get down to the point of almost seeing at a subatomic level. And they've come out, and there's been tons of white papers about that. Every single ounce of your body is just resonating frequency, right? Yeah. So if it looks solid, if you were able to zoom in with your eyes close enough, you would see nothing more than, like you're talking about, a ton of empty space, and then just particles moving around. Yeah. And your mind moves past the empty space, which is, the gluon and stuff like that holding it together. And it's just seeing the particles, and then it's forming in your mind concept, the particles being reality, and it's right. being dense and having density. Right. So there's a SMQ AI. If you've not looked at any of his videos, he's supposedly got somebody that is in with the military that has been contacting him. He hasn't released the guy's name, but supposedly this guy is contacting him and talking about the soft disclosure with the alien stuff that's going on right now from Congress. Okay. Starting to make some mainstream media. Okay. They're actually getting on the U.S. government about release and disclosure to them, because there's so many things that are popping up more often now in the skies.
You know what? The SMQ guy, it's funny you mentioned him, because I just was talking to him before I talked to you. He gave me his contact information, and I'm supposed to do an interview with him on Sunday.
Yeah, he got you from the last video that we did, because I talked about you in that video, and I said, yeah, you reached out. I reached out to you, and you reached back to me, and I said, yeah, we're supposed to talk later in this week. And he's like, oh, that's awesome, because him and I are buddies on Twitter and stuff like that, and he's got a really good core group of people. He actually just added me into his core group of researchers that are into doing the research on the Mandela Effect and are putting ourselves out there. So I'm sure he wants to interview you, talk to you about it, and then get you wrapped up into there, into our group of people that are on Twitter and are communicating back and forth.
Nice.
Really, that's the way I honestly believe. And Ruth Ann and I are together, fortunately, so we have each other to bounce things off of. But that's a very limited pool. So I'm just now getting to, like I said, within the last 3 months even, I'm starting to finally get in touch with people that I've reached out to probably 100 people. I mean, I even tried to get in touch with like Richie from Boston, who does a bunch of stuff, and other people like that, and got like no replies whatsoever. A lot of the emails I've gotten were from my own subs and are just talking about it's so awesome that you and your wife are together. And I email with them back and forth because it's a grounding base for them. And some of them are actually starting to come out and do videos, which is awesome. And I said, that's the only way we're going to get connections is if all of us can harmonize, can come together. And we don't necessarily have to meet physically, though that would be awesome. We don't necessarily have to meet physically. It's us just having conversations and bouncing our own experiences and what we see going on in the world. And like you with your housemate guy, I mean, that's a connection that very few of us are going to have with someone.
Yes.
Yet it's a totally unique experience and a totally unique position to be in that you're in right now with that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Everyone coming together and pooling their knowledge and experience just like makes it build and build and build. Yeah. Till you get to the critical mass. That's what we're looking for, the critical mass. How much percentage of the population does it take to flip the consciousness for people to begin to understand I don't think it's a big percentage, honestly. I really don't. I think if enough people, really believe in something, it will push the group over the edge.
Oh yeah, and I absolutely believe that. And one of the things with SMQ is he did the holographic universe document. That's a FOIA document from the government. He did like a whole series of videos about that, and I'm sure he'll talk to you about it when you guys talk this weekend.
Okay. So, yeah, I got a lot to catch up.
Well, just let him know you talked to me, right? And then just hey, I brought up the FOIA document for the holographic universe. Now he's getting into some disclosure stuff with whether they're either they're ETs or they're I would say IT. The interdimensional terrestrial, or whether they're extraterrestrial or interdimensional terrestrials. But he's now into doing that and talking about that. So with the core group of people, and he actually just took a break. He actually took a break for like a week, and then he's never replied to any of my videos. But the last video I did where I was talking about the dog story,
right?
And I mentioned you in the video. I was like, yeah, I saw your video on Vanessa VA's channel. She does a lot of quips where she'll pull chunks out of people's videos, and it's like a Mandela Affected and Afraid type series. And she always gives credit to all of us who do that, and that helps link us together. But she did one for you, which they had gotten from Moneybags, who had actually found you probably a few weeks ago. So, but when I saw that, I'm like, shit. So what I did, I was like, I got to make sure this guy's legit. So I went to your website, I looked that up, I looked at all your other videos in there. I'm like, and you post videos like once every 6 months on your YouTube feed. I'm like, it's kind of odd that you would do this all of a sudden. And I'm like, I think this guy's really legit. So I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to reach out to him and see. You had your email in there, and then you replied back, and I was like, all right, well, let's see if this really goes somewhere. So it's awesome that we were able to hook up and connect. Because I'm like, yeah. I mean, well, and I like you. I think the only way we are actually going to go to that next level is connecting together. And raising our own vibrational frequency as we're aligning with each other and helping each other all kind of get up to that next level. Because I think we are all at slightly different levels, maybe with some of the things that we see and we notice and where we're at in the stage of the development process. But I think that some of us on the higher tier, perhaps, if we're going to talk it in tier levels, like you, me, SMQ, Jason, Christopher, some of these guys who have been putting ourselves out there, right? I think we're at that top level of tier of understanding and knowledge. And I think the only way we can grow further is by all of us harmonizing together and pushing the last bits of those parts and pieces. Like you brought the Gilligan's Island thing, and then how your housemate had talked about, well, that was part of, the different parts being brought together into it. And then how he also talks about, we were talking about with the Hopi Reservation, which we are in Arizona on the northern part of the rim is the Hopi tribe. And I looked at, funny that you brought that up, because that really resonates with me, because there's a guy, and I got to try to figure out what he is, but he's one of the guys that I follow. He goes at it from the religious perspective for the Mandela Effect.
Right.
But one of the big things he talks about is the Hopi tribe.
Okay.
And he had done several things where they meet almost like the UFON people, where they meet like once a year to do conventions. Okay. He does something like that where they met out at the Hopi tribe. They'd gotten permission to be out there and to go out and do a camping expedition for like a week or something like that to harmonize with the universe. And he had brought up that point, and I've seen tons of videos about that. So when you mentioned the Hopi thing too, I was like, that really resonates with me on that. So
that's cool.
I gotta look into it more, and we're planning on running the vehicle up because it's only like, I don't know, 4.5, 5 hour trip for us to go up north.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it's just crazy how these things are affecting all of us. And agreed with you, the time that we're in and being able to communicate with each other is huge, because you think back 15 years ago, the people that were actually doing this kind of stuff, it was a lot more spread out and a lot further and fewer between. So it couldn't have happened the way that it did. So, getting back to the drumming on the dead horse of CERN, a lot of people tell me not to do that. They may have on purpose initiated it in the time that they did. I think Jason Christopher actually did a call in to the one main scientist that's on there, where you see the CERN video that they do with the Bond 01, Mandela Bond 01. Have you seen that video, the CERN video? Google.
I've seen a lot of them. That one can't recall it at the moment, but tell me.
If you Google CERN happy video.
Oh yeah, they did the music video. Yeah.
And the guy John is holding up the sign. Well,
yes.
Jason Christopher called into him. He was at the college. He called in and it just straight up asked him about it. And the guy, John Ellington, laughed at him. And he's like, well, no. I was just holding up a sign for fun. And he's like, so you guys aren't taking any responsibility for the Mandela effect. He's like, oh, it's just all confabulation and people misremembering or something like that. I'm like, there's something to do with it, because that sign came out before the conscious awareness came out for people talking about it. And it's really, I mean, you could get into the conspiracy side of reading into things, but, Bond 01 and then Mandela are Nelson Mandela, because Bond 01, first name was Nelson.
Right.
And then
right.
So Mandela effect is where we put it, and it's like,
but I still think my opinion is that they may be doing something, but I don't think CERN has anything to do with what's really going on.
No.
I don't.
I think that the motor's always been, it's like thinking of it like a motorcycle, an old motorcycle, right? You're always just pushing it down. You can't get the kickstart. And I think what they did is they put an electric starter on the damn thing. And then now they're kind of almost hands off.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. I just think this is something that's always been going on, and just we've never really paid attention because there's been so many distractions in this world that has prevented people from really paying attention. And now that a few people that are starting to pay attention and grasping what's going on, we would be considered the crazies, because we're actually speaking up and saying, hey, no, I do remember it being like this. I have seen this change. I actually physically watched this change. And to say that to someone who hasn't experienced it, it makes us sound like we're crazy.
Right. Yeah. I think CERN is related. I think it's more of a control. They're trying to control things in a certain kind of way. But
I think they're doing something, but I don't think they've been pushing us through different realities all our lives.
I think they just kickstarted it. I don't think they meant to kickstart it. I think that, like you're saying, I think maybe being the higher ups and having more knowledge about stuff, knew all this stuff was going on. And like you were saying with the chemical spraying and everything else, because we're seeing this vast acceleration of these, things that people are in fear about. And then other people are like, well, maybe it's about our protection. But I kind of agree with you. I think they're doing it to try to either slow down the conscious awakening or impede it. And I think that's what CERN meant to do. I don't think they meant to actually kickstart it. But I think the off-fall of it is what they did is they accidentally did kickstart it. I think that they actually just, those of us who were maybe on a 5-year out, just going back to what you were saying, maybe we were 5 years out or 10 years out from becoming in the awakened state. And they,
Yeah, and they actually, from what I've gleaned too, is that CERN and there's 13 other Large Hadron Colliders. They all fire off at the same time, and there's actually a hidden one that's under the Mediterranean. And I think if you even go to CERN's website, they talk about an experiment they did under the Mediterranean Ocean, and that also fires off. So I think they're located in key locations around the planet, and they all go off at the same time. And one of the things that I just came across was CERN needs helium. Helium is necessary to cool down the process. Right now, the planet is undergoing a worldwide helium shortage. That's why
Really?
you go to Party City, you can't get helium balloons anymore. Like you just can't get them because there's a worldwide helium shortage. So part of me is like, yeah, hopefully CERN will get all the helium that's left to keep their experiments going. Hopefully that in and of itself might slow them down. So keep your eyes on what's going on with helium, because that might play into this to some extent as well.
Well, and like right now, CERN is shut down because they're speeding up the accelerator, right?
I heard that it was shut down, but I also have heard that it's not shut down in other parallel realities, and somehow they've figured out how to bring in CERN operating in other parallels into our reality. So even when it's shut down, it's not totally shut. They still have an influence, but yeah, they're trying to make it bigger, better, faster, for sure.
Yeah. It's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go. Like I said, there's so many rabbit trails, and I don't necessarily think that any one of them are distinct rabbit trails. I think they're all interconnected. Every ounce of everything. I mean, I think the moon situation. I think whether regardless of what the shape of our planet is. Obviously there's no true photographs of it from outer space of that. So can we even go to outer space? I don't know. What is the shape of the planet? I don't really know. I could see it from both perspectives. So
yeah, I believe they're all holograms. Earth is a hologram. The moon has its own hologram running. Mars has it's like everything is like a holographic universe. There's holograms within holograms within holograms, and space itself is a hologram. And if you know how to manipulate it, you could go from jump point to jump point. Without you don't have to worry about warp drives. You can actually get there in a fraction of an instant in time.
So have you read the government FOIA document regarding holographic universe?
I've never even heard of it.
Make sure when you talk to SMQ, you ask him about that, because he did like, I don't know, probably a half a dozen to a dozen videos about the FOIA document for holographic universe and the experimentation that our United States government had already done and sending people through alternate realities via that.
Okay.
So he did a whole thing about it. That's why I said that's pretty cool that you brought that up, because and you're getting ready to talk to him, because he spent a ton of time on there.
Okay.
He's got a lot of videos on his channel about it too. That I think he's got them. I think if you go to SMQ AI's YouTube channel, I think he's got them isolated into a playlist. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think he isolated them down.
Okay. I'll definitely have to talk to him about it and maybe try to listen to at least one or two of them. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I do. I podcast that stuff a lot, because you got like Brian. You know who Brian Staveley is?
No.
That dude. He was originally a flat Earth guy who started with the 9/11 conspiracy of the Twin Towers. That's how he got into it. And then he got into the flat Earth, and now he's into the ME community. And he talks about trying to again bring everything together in that. But he's like a powerhouse guy, man. He does like these 3-hour shows almost every day, which is like a call-in that he has. Some guy over in Europe, black sheep researcher, and a woman over in Florida. And the three of them always get on and have conference calls, and then they have live callers call in and stuff like that. And he talks about all sorts of different things related to, Mandela Effect, flat Earth, different conspiracies and that stuff. They take it more from the God. He's kind of like more of the God approach now too, that he thinks CERN and those guys have no ability to do it and don't know what they're doing, and that it's all just fake.
Okay.
Just because he hasn't actually seen it and experienced it,
okay.
Which is fine, because he doesn't beat up anybody for having a different thought or opinion about it. He actually sits and takes the time to listen to people and let everyone kind of share knowledge and bounce knowledge. But yeah, he's a pretty good guy. He used to be, I guess, a sports talk show radio host.
Okay.
And so I don't know what he's doing now for work, but yeah, he does. He's got like three different YouTube channels that he does.
Okay.
Okay.
What was his name again?
Brian Staveley.
Staveley. Okay.
Yeah. I think his channels, I think he's got one's called Brian Staveley, and then one's the real. I want to say it's a realnewsonline.com or something like that.
Okay.
He's got a couple of different, but they're all linked on his website. So
okay.
yeah.
Wow.
But-
Cool.
So yeah, hey man, this is awesome, man. I'm glad that we were able to hook up and talk because, like I said, everyone does videos, but if you don't actually physically get to talk to someone, you know, there's only so much you can do in a video, only so much you can put out there. So
Exactly.
So
yeah, this is great. It was great talking to you, Scott. I know this won't be the last time.
oh no, absolutely, it better not be.
Yeah.
No, I actually want to. Yeah, it'd be awesome if you could talk to again your housemate, and maybe in a future one, I'll actually sit down with my laptop instead of my shaky ass phone going on here, and we can sit down and have a conversation with the three of us or the four of us if my wife's into sitting down and having that talk about it too.
Okay.
Just the time logistics and everything else for all of us to make it work.
Exactly.
Cool.
Sure.
Now I want to hear about your conversation with SMQ and stuff like that. I'm sure he'll tell me about it too. So.
Yeah, I think he's going to post it on his channel because he was talking to me about how to get onto Google Hangouts and like actually do a show or something. So
yeah.
We'll see how that works though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I tried just so you know, I recorded our conversation. If you're okay with that,
Sure.
If I can figure out how to download it and post it, I'd like to do that just to add it to my channel. If you're good with that.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hey man, well it was awesome talking to you. I know you probably got some stuff to get going here because it's 4th of July weekend. So
yeah, I do. But thank you very much, and yeah, we'll talk again soon. And if you post something send me an email if you post something about this on your channel.
Absolutely, I like
to listen. I like to listen to myself. see how it's come out.
I think we're all that way a little bit. We all go back and re-listen to it.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Cool. All right, man. We'll talk to you.
All right. Take care, Scott.
All right. Bye.
Bye.